Assalamu alaikum students. Today we will be discussing a very important question. It's actually why the government sometimes make the imported goods more expensive. And in other words, it can also be called as the protectionist policy, right? It's when the government is actually protecting the local economy. And the protectionist policy actually includes the tariffs, the quotas, and the subsidies. These are actually like well practiced by the government, and we can see it like very clearly when the government announces that we are going to impose, like let's say, for instance, 40% tax on the imported goods, and they also sometimes subsidize certain goods in order to support their local industries. And you can also see that the certain countries they actually practice certain approaches at a greater extent in comparison to the other countries. Like the tariffs, we can see that the Trump is actually so obsessed with the tariffs and everything. The subsidies, you can see that China is doing so well in practicing this approach in order to support their local industries. Now the students are somehow they are familiar with the word tariff and the subsidies, but somehow this can be like a new word for you. So we'll go through each of them, no worries at all. So first of all, what is tariffs? Tariffs is actually a tax duty imposed on the imported goods, right? On the imported goods or commodities. Now, what is subsidies? Subsidies is actually where the government actually financially supports the local industries. They give financial assistance to the local industries, thus making its cost of production less, for the firms or the local industries. Now coming back to the quota, what actually a quota is? The quota is the limit set by the government on the quantity of certain goods that can be imported. For example, the government has set a limit of that the 5,000 cars can be imported. It means that you cannot import more than 5,000 cars. In simple words, we can say that the quota is a concept related to the quantity of the imported goods. Sorry, my writing is not that good. And the tariff is a concept related to the price of the imported goods. Now for the quota, the government actually gives permits. This is known as permits. So now we have discussed the protectionist policies in detail, and I'll be discussing that how these protectionists they actually protect this argument. So they are actually of the view that by doing so, we are protecting the local jobs, like the local people of that economy, they can have jobs. And it's only possible if new industries or if the already existing industries are being protected by the government. So the first argument is this. The second one is protecting the infant industries, which we also call them as the immature industries that need such an protection in order to grow, in order to flourish. So they say that they come up with this argument that actually the government has to support the local industries so they can grow and they can develop into a more immature industries and they can contribute more locally and then globally. The third one is actually improving the trade balance when your imports are actually greater than your exports. So it's called a trade deficit. So in order to address this problem, so they come up with this argument that. So now if we see the protectionist approach, they are actually violating the comparative advantage theory, which clearly states that the country should specialize in the goods or the services that have a lower opportunity cost. So if you are actually protecting a weak industry, and if it's not your area of specialization, and then you are protecting it and making it forcefully your specialized area, so it can actually harm the economy. You are actually also reducing the options available to the consumers in your economy, and it can also have the risk of retaliation by the other economies.